Hi guys, if you're watching this, you are in the right spot. We are going to be talking about grapes today, which isn't just a fruit, it actually is an acronym for every civilization that we will talk about this year. Grapes is geography, religion, achievements, politics, economics, and social structure. So you are going to take notes on the page that I just gave you in class. You may work with a partner. Feel free to pause, rewind, do whatever you need to get the notes down and make sure that you write down everything that's in red. Okay, let's get started. G stands for geography, so please write that down. And we spent some time talking about geography so far, so we will be looking at the physical geography of each location. Why did people decide to settle there? What drew them to that neck of the woods? What resources were available? So think about it. People would have needed fresh water. They would have needed food, shelter, some of the basic needs. And so when we look at, say, Egypt or Mesopotamia, China, whatever the case may be, know that geography plays a huge role in how people ended up there. Our second slide deals with R, or religion. And when we talk about religion, we will look at the beliefs and ways of worship for these early people. You see a church over here. That's an example of a place people might worship, or they might worship at a synagogue or temple. We'll look at the symbols that represent religions. So if you can look at the crescent, moon, and star, that is a symbol of Islam. And so we know that Christianity has its own symbols, Judaism has its own symbols, and we'll take a look at those. Now, when we talk about religion, we're not only talking about a belief in a supreme being, we also talk about philosophies or ways of life. And so when we get to China and India, we will talk about philosophies. And so some things that we will cover this year include Judaism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. Okay, our next slide talks about achievements, so go ahead and write that down. Achievements has to do with things like inventions. Okay, so for an example, an invention that we'll learn about in Mesopotamia was the creation of the wheel, which was a great invention because we're still using it today. A technology doesn't necessarily have to be plugged in or battery operated. It's something that can make your life easier. So for example, we have an example of technology here with the first writing, and this is called cuneiform, and we will talk about that as well. Architecture is a huge achievement. I mean, right here we have the pyramids. Thousands of people working on these year after year to get them constructed for a specific purpose. And when we get to Egypt, we'll talk about that as well. And then lastly, discoveries, like the discovery of 2 continents with early exploration in the Middle Ages. Politics has to do with different forms of government. We'll look at historical leaders like Hammurabi, Ramses the Great, Qin Shi Huangdi. We will talk about written laws and why do people need laws anyway. Wars are always a big factor in ancient times as people struggled for power. And then voting comes from ancient Greece. And here's a quick clip for you to enjoy.
A little bit of fun with the American people, he says, not quite in tune with their government. A recent report says the majority of Americans cannot name the 3 branches of government: judicial, executive, and legislative. Yeah. To make it easier, the government is renaming those branches Kim, Chloe, and Courtney. Kim, Chloe, and Courtney. Mr. Cuomo, you can assign the names to the different branches. I'll leave you that responsibility. I don't know. Who was Kim, Chloe, and Courtney? Just kidding, John.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that. That was just something silly in regards to government. It went along with it, so why not? Our next slide is called economics. Economics deals with currency or forms of money. So for example, we have dollar bills in the United States. Other countries have other forms of currency, but that means money. We'll look at trade. So for example, right here, I have a map of what is called the Silk trade routes. And this was trade going from China over in the east all the way over to Rome in the west. And many different ideas and goods were traded on these routes. Exports and imports, things that you bring into your country, things that you sell or take out of your country. So, for example, we import a lot of electronics into this country. We export things like wheat, movies, entertainment out to other countries. And then, of course, taxes. We'll cover that too. Our final slide is social structure. Social structure means who has the most power. So you can see off to the side, this is an Egyptian social pyramid. We call it that because at the top it's very tiny, and the person who would have had the most power was the pharaoh. And then as you go farther down, you get more and more people with less and less power. So down here we have the peasants and the slaves making up the majority of the population, but with the least amount of power. So in today's world, you might think about social structure in terms of at school, who would have the most power, who would have the least power, and at home, who would have the most power and who would have the least power. Okay? And that's it, friends. You are finished with the notes. So let me quickly say this again. If you missed something, go back. If you need to rewind, go back. If you want to watch it again because it was so darn good, then go back. But make sure you have the notes. Make sure you have them all in red. We will be doing something with this later. Okay? Take care.